So the struggle for the mikvaot is yet another stage in our ongoing effort to equalize the playing field for the reform movement and the other progressive movements in Israel, so that Israelis can choose their own way to connect to their Judaism. So in the grand scheme of things, the Israeli government invests 35 billion shekels, 35 billion, in the Orthodox monopoly, and we are now, after many years of struggle, coming up to 10 million shekels in the investment in all of the progressive Judaism, including pluralistic Beit Midrash, all of the investment of the government. So this is the unequal playing field that we're working very, very hard to narrow. And in terms of practicality, we converted, the conservative and the reform movements in Israel convert about 20% of the converts in Israel annually. And currently, before our victory in the Supreme Court, those converts had nowhere to use the mikveh other than the sea or one mikveh in Chalaton, which is remote from most of the converts.
I think that in regard to the mikvot legislation, we need to identify one troubling failure, and to start with the failure. But also to remember the achievement which is still reflected in this story. The failure is that the Knesset, Israeli parliament, legislated a bill that go directly against our rights, and legislation that overrules the Supreme Court ruling. And we need to admit, especially when we're talking with leaders around the progressive world, we need to admit that as a global family, we didn't succeed to create the same level of pressure on the Israeli government as we succeeded a few years ago with the conversion bill. And we need to do a cheshbon nefesh. We need to have a self-reflection and to understand that if our global community is not strong enough in presenting political pressure on the Israeli government, the ultra-Orthodox parties in Israel, especially today, can promote anti-progressive, anti-liberal legislation. And that's a warning for all of us. We are sure that they will try to move to the next stage, which is the Jew legislation. The achievement that should be marked and celebrated is the fact that the Israeli government understands today that without offering practical alternatives, it's very hard to justify any move to strengthen the Orthodox monopoly. Now, this is something that didn't exist 10 or 15 years ago. The fact that the Ministry of Justice, that the Attorney General, that the chairperson of the Netanyahu coalition, the parliament member who is in charge on running the coalition, the fact that they all came and declared that a solution must be presented for the non-Orthodox converts, that's a great achievement. We are not satisfied with the legislation. We think that we need to be very strong when we face such a legislation. But aside to this need, we should acknowledge the progress that was made in Israel and the fact that the government today is more committed to balance a little bit the discrimination. So the bottom line of the mikvot story is that first we need to be stronger, and that we need to find a way, in spite the fact it's confusing and it's difficult to control or to hold all the small details, and we need to find a way to assemble our crowds around the world and in Israel to present a very strong message to the Israeli government. And at the same time, we need to have a strong faith that when you work hard and when you commit yourself to public and legal work, you also see a progress and new achievements. And that's the story of the mikvot. Well, first of all, when we're talking about the Kotel, we still need to cherish the moment, I don't like to call it a victory, but a moment of a major achievement. And we should not undermine the achievement because it is very difficult and challenging to implement the government resolution. The fact that the right-wing Israeli government, based on the ultra-Orthodox parties, voted for a resolution that gains the non-Orthodox movement significant recognition, this is a major achievement. And the fact that the ministers of the National Religious Party, Habayit HaYehudi, Minister Bennett, Minister Shaked, voted for the resolution. This is another encouraging sign. 10 years ago, none of us could ever even imagine such a resolution being presented to the government. So let's celebrate the fact that Netanyahu brought this resolution. Now we need to take the necessary steps in order to ensure its implementation, and that Netanyahu and the other ministers will understand that unless they implement the resolution, a major damage to the relations between Israel and the Jewish world can occur, and that's our duty. We have no reason to believe that we cannot push the Israeli government to implement the resolution. It all depends on how strong we are in sending the message to the Israeli government.
Yeah, we're still in progress in terms of the Kotel, and this is our time. This is our time to be organized. This is our time to be united, and we have the power. North American Jewish community and the global Jewish community have demonstrated that when we are united and we are focused, we can achieve anything. The Kotel resolution was an unbelievable achievement. We couldn't have imagined it several years ago. And so we need to reunite and reorganize and make sure that our voices are heard.
Now it's important to share with our viewers and through them with your congregations and other progressive circles that we assume that in the end we will have to address the Israeli Supreme Court with a petition calling for the implementation of the government resolution. I must share with you that from the beginning we thought that the story will not be concluded without a Supreme Court ruling, but coming to the Supreme Court with a government formal resolution, it's much easier than coming with just a constitutional claim. It is clear that the government resolution that was passed last January gives us a major advantage when we are addressing the Supreme Court around the issue of the wall. Aside to the Supreme Court petition, the other thing we need, and Noah mentioned it, it's this global Jewish progressive pressure in North America, in Europe, in Australia, in the former Soviet Union, and in South America, a pressure on the Israeli government through the official representatives of the Israeli government, the ambassadors and general consulates. We need our communities overseas to be deeply involved in sending a very strong message to the Israeli government. And we assume and we plan that this coming September, towards the high holidays, and during the high holidays, we are asking our colleagues overseas to use the days of preparations towards the high holidays and the communal assemblies during the high holidays in order to send this message and to find a way to cultivate this message. And I'm sure that you know about different venues of presenting your voice to the official Israeli representatives in your countries and in the Jewish national and local media. and finding the way to send this message. And we are here in order to help you. And besides this webinar, you know our emails and you know our phone numbers, and the people in the headquarters of the World Union are also accessible to all of you. And together we definitely need to build a strong global progressive campaign demanding the Israeli government to implement the resolution over the Kotel. We are planning with the excellent work of the Israel Religious Action Center led by Rabbi Noa Sattath and Anat Hoffman. We are planning to prepare all the necessary materials, first to explain the story, or this complicated story of the Western Wall and the government resolution, and second, to help you in your local and national campaign, to prepare sample letters, to give you different ideas. And again, I'm sure that if you assemble people in your congregations, in your movements, and brainstorm with them what can be done in your communities, I'm sure you'll come up with wonderful ideas how to bring your voice into this campaign.
Absolutely. Our first success was the Rabbi Miri Gold case, in which we got the first funding for a reform rabbi in Israel. And we got, it was a very long case, we got that 7 years on the day after we submitted it. And that was after a few years of collecting materials. And that made me think of Jacob, who worked for Leah for 7 years and then had to work for Rachel for 7 more years. So definitely we have several more years of work ahead of us until we get all of our rabbis, all of the salaries and all of the benefits that they deserve. And this is where we are. We're in the second 7-year term. And we are much better off because we have the precedent setting of this Miri Gold case, and we already have 9 progressive rabbis, both reform and conservative, that are getting salaries from the Israeli government. But that's a small minority. The vast majority of our rabbis are still not being funded on equal terms. And we are working with the government that has officially agreed that they need to fund us to find the mechanism for funding. This is a very long and tedious negotiation. We may have to go to the Supreme Court again. We're hoping that we don't, but we may have to go again. This is important both on the symbolic level, but also because since all of the Orthodox rabbis are funded by the state, or such a large majority, the movement here in Israel invests a lot of its resources in funding rabbis in order to equalize the playing field. Once we release the movement of that burden, then it allows the movement to build on our current success and build more congregations, invest more in outreach and in education, and really expand. So that's why this is such a critical struggle for us.
No, I know that for some of the American viewers, this entire discussion about public funding for religious services is a strange discussion. And sometimes it's even a scary discussion, because the vast majority of American Jews want to protect this concept of clear separation between religion and state. The situation in Israel is different. And Noah already mentioned the tremendous gap between the government support to the Orthodox community and establishment and the lack of support for non-Orthodox causes in the Reform community, the conservative community, in other forms of non-Orthodox Judaism. And we need to understand that in Israel, the battle over public funding, that's the core battle. I think that we already showed in the last 10 years that there are enough Israelis who are waiting for us out there. We more than double the number of our congregations. Every year we ordain 4, 5, 6, sometimes even more new Israeli rabbis. Many of them do want to become congregational rabbis. We are going to the Israeli periphery in the last few years, and we open new congregations. And in the end, not like in North America, in some of the other parts of the progressive world in Israel. It's definitely depending on the ability to secure public funding, and that's the reality in Israel. And the same way we speak different languages, and we use different languages in our daily life. Our countries do not share the same constitutional understanding of religion and state relations. In Israel, it will be done only through major public funding. And that is why this battle is so important, and that is why we need your help. We need your help to remind the Israeli ambassadors and the other representatives that are coming to your congregations in the Zionist federations and in the Jewish federations and in the Board of Deputies. You need to remind the people again and again that Reform and Conservative Judaism in Israel are discriminated by the government. And this is something that we cannot accept anymore, and it's time for us to say enough is enough, and we want to change this reality. I think that many of the achievements that we already did achieve, funding the salaries of the rabbis in the regional councils, the support of the government in building synagogues like the one that was just dedicated in Kibbutz Gezer, and the one that will be dedicated in the coming few weeks in the city of Carmiel, the success we had with preventing the conversion legislation. Those achievements were made with the support of the pro-Israel and Zionist arms of our global family, meaning Artzeinu, the international organizational federation of the Zionist movements of progressive Judaism, the work of IRAC, in North America, IRAC in Canada, pro-Zion in the United Kingdom, IRAC in Australia, and many other sister and brother organizations of the Israeli movement. And I'm calling all of you to join the local Artzeinu branches and movements in promoting membership, in promoting the work of volunteers in those organizations. They are our real ambassadors around the world, and we need your support in strengthening those organizations. I think that in the end we are all disciples of the Zionist ideology here in Israel. And one of the things that the history of Zionism is teaching us, that in the end it's about setting facts on ground. And we need to continue our efforts in the Supreme Court, and we need to continue our political efforts in the Israeli parliament, in the Knesset, and we need to do an excellent PR work in Israel. But in the end of the day, it's about our ability to go out there and to meet the Israelis and to serve those Israelis that are in a search for a more meaningful expression of their Jewish identity and want to do it through progressive venues. And I think that for us, the fact that every year now, on Yom Kippur, there is a growing number of minyanim, of congregations, of communities, and that every high holidays we are able to present progressive Judaism to new crowds of Israelis. I think this is the best proof that in spite of all the difficulties, we are in the right direction, and that we need to continue our battles because there is a real chance to win them. With many Israelis that are tired from this narrow expression of Judaism in Israel. And we want to use this opportunity, Noah and myself, to thank you all for your friendship and partnership and support, to thank the World Union, the different national movements around the progressive world, to thank Artzeinu and ARTSA for this long-standing partnership, and to wish you and all of us Shana Tova U'Metuka.